No, Shalom Aleichem, Akutavo, Chayav Tov. We're here in our weekly class, and as our custom is, we'll begin with our weekly story. This story goes back some 30 years, if I'm, more or less, ballpark figure. But it was told a little more recently, something like 2 years ago, on a Zoom broadcast. There was a Kinus HaShluchim due to the fact that there was the COVID, so the shluchim weren't able to get together that year, and there was a Zoom broadcast of all the shluchim from all over the world. And this is a story that was told, as it was told by Rav Levi Shem Tov, who I knew when he was a bacher in California, bacher in Olei Torah back by the Rebbe. And it's a very, very moving story, to say the least. The story starts out, and this is perhaps in continuation to the story that we told 2 weeks ago, in regard to the fact that the Rebbe sends Bochrim and even married couples all over the world in order for in the summertime. Usually, that's the essential time that the Rebbe sends shluchim in order to do the shlichut of the Melech, the Mercaz Le'Inyanei Chinuch, to go and to spread Yiddishkeit, to spread Chassidus, to spread all the treasures of the literature of Chabad and Hasidic philosophy in general, to strengthen the kihilos, the congregations all over the world, and to bring Yiddishkeit to people, putting on tefillin, putting up mezuzahs, and so on. Letters in the Sefer Torah for the children, for the adults, and so is also the case with these two then Bochrim. This was Ephraim Mintz and Levi Shem Tov that went out, and they went to Northern California, to the area of the city of Fresno, if I pronounced it correctly. I think so. Fresno, excuse me. Of course I didn't. It got mixed up. Fresno in Northern California. Then there was a brand new shliach, a Rabbi Zirkin, that took over the position as the shliach of the Rebbe in Fresno, and they came out in the summer in order to go and to assist the shliach and to go into to make personal home visitations, and they even had a larger program, as we're going to hear. While they were there, they went to every day they went out to visit people in their homes. When there was a little spare time, in other words, if they didn't find people in their home or for some reason or another, so there was a local Jew called Sam Shmuel, and they would come to his home. He made his home available to them, an open home. His home was a kosher home, and they would sit and they would verbring with him, speak about Yiddishkeit, speak about anything and everything. They had a grandiose plan, which was to go to the Yosemite National Park, which is one of the most incredible, large, and beautiful parks in the world. It's something like over 3,000 square kilometers, without exaggerating. And since people from all over the world come to visit there, it's something like 4 million people a year come to visit there in the national park. They were sure that there were also Jews that came to visit, and especially now in the summer, and they would be able to go and to put tefillin on the people and to speak with them about the Torah, about mitzvahs. So they spoke to Sam. They told Sam their plan. Sam went, you don't want to go there. There's hardly any Jews that go to Yosemite National Park. He said, yeah. He says, yeah. Okay, so they continue to listen, and then he says, but wait a second, you know what? you know what? There's a Jew that I know that used to live here in Fresno, and he moved to a place not far from the park. He lives in a town outside the park, a place called Yosemite Lakes. And he says he would enjoy if you would go and visit him. So they said, okay, fine. Do you have his address, his phone number? So he says, no, but go there. You'll find him. Don't worry. So they wanted to pacify Sam, but at the same time, they really didn't have any intention to go on this mysterious mission to go into this town without a phone number, without an address, and to start looking for this Jew. Yosemite Park was national park, was something like a 2-hour drive from Fresno, and they went on their way. As they're driving, it's literally on the way. They see a sign, and it's an exit from the highway, and it says Yosemite Lakes. And they look at each other like, should we go off the road? Should we go into the town? And they said, it's going to be a waste of time. We don't have anything to go on. And they continued on the road. As they're driving, so minute by minute goes by, and they have a terrible guilty conscience, a spiritual guilty conscience. They said, we're here all the way from New York, and and this Jew by Ashgocha Protis, Sam, told us about this other Jew that's here, right here in Yosemite Lakes, and we drove right by the exit, and we're going to Yosemite National Park. How could we do such a thing? So after they drove for another few minutes, they decided that's it. They stopped the car, made a U-turn, and they returned. They got off at Yosemite Lakes, and as they come into town, they see a realtor. And Yosemite Lakes, it's like a small town. Everyone knows everyone. So they go into the realtor and they ask him, tell me, do you know this and this guy, this and this fellow? And he says, sure, I know him. And he gives them the exact directions how to get to this fellow. They drive over, they knock on the door, and the door opens. Comes, a very well-looking individual, opens the door, and he looks at these two young yeshiva students with their hats and beards and coats, and he's like, where did these guys come from? Landed from the moon. Rabbi Lederberg is here tonight. And they were used to this type of a relationship, so they immediately tell him, listen, we apologize about the surprise, but we're two yeshiva students coming by, and we want to know if it would be okay to come in and to speak a little bit. So he says, sure, come right in. A hartziki yid, Yehudi levavi, as we say in Hebrew. They sit down and they start talking, and as they're talking, they literally sat there for almost like 3 hours straight. And the husband's sitting there, and his wife came in to sit down, and they're asking question after question after question about Yiddishkeit, about Judaism, about Kabbalah, about Hasidic philosophy, about customs, about Shabbos, about holidays. They really wanted to know a lot of details. And then in the conversation, so he mentions that he has a daughter, but they haven't been in contact with her for a long time. And the Bachrim felt bad, but fine, he must have his reasons. And then the wife stands up and she brings a picture to the boys, to the Bachrim, and she says, "Here, this is a picture of our daughter." The Bachrim stare at the picture and they can't believe it. There's a woman, their daughter, sitting there. She's dressed very modestly, and next to her is standing a young man who is standing there with a black hat and a jacket, a beard, and he literally looks like a Lubavitcher. And there they also have the two young children. They're also they have payas. They look like Hasidische Kinder, Hasidische children. And the Bachrim can't make sense of what exactly is this. So they look at they look at him, and he said, and they tell their host, we don't understand. These people are dressed, and they're dressed as from where we come from. They're dressed as Lubavitchers. They look like Lubavitchers. So the host says, yeah, they're Chabad, but our daughter, she married a goy. They say, what? So he says, yeah, she married a goy. What do you mean? He doesn't look like a goy. So he says, listen, from when my daughter was 0, I educated her, and I told her that when the time comes and she gets married, she's only to marry a Jew. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, she finds this guy, and this guy, she tells us, is a convert, a ger. And so he says, I don't care what he wants to call himself, but he doesn't have. And this is the incredible misunderstanding in this person's mind. He doesn't have Jewish genes. So as far as I'm concerned, we disconnected any contact with our daughter, and we've never gone to visit them. They live somewhere in a city called Pittsburgh. We never went to visit them after they got married, and that's how we disconnected our connection. The boys felt very bad, and they started to explain to this couple that it's not a matter of Jewish genes, according to halacha, according to Torah. So this person, since he's converted, he's a ger tzedek, and he's called the son of Avraham Avinu, and therefore he's a 100% full-fledged Jew. There's a grave misunderstanding here. And the father started to cry. He started to cry tears, and the boys, they calmed him down, and they stood up, and they offered him to put tefillin on. He put on tefillin, and then the Bachrim went and they put up a mezuzah on the doors, on the doorpost. And after they sat for a little more time to speak, they got up and they continued on their way. They continued on their way to where? To Yosemite National Park. As they're approaching, like the first pit stop on the way to the park, so all of a sudden at the gas station, they get the surprise of their life. What was the surprise? They're told that Yosemite National Park is closed. It's been closed for a week or two because of terrible fires. That summer was a very difficult summer. They had very terrible fires in the park, and the park was closed. And they look at each other and they say, "Wow, wow." And this is something that we were going to go all the way over there and to forego the visit to Yosemite Lakes to this Jewish family. The only reason we came out here was probably only to visit this family. Fine, time goes by, and Yud Aleph Nisan, the 11th of Nisan, comes from the summer, the Rebbe's birthday, and Levi Shem Tov finds himself sitting in a Farbrengen. From behind, someone taps him on the shoulder. It's Rabbi Swerdlov. He's Rabbi Yosef Swerdlov of Crown Heights. And he looks at the Bacher, and he says, "Listen, I would like to hear the details of the story of how the Rebbe sent you to this family." He's talking about a family in order to go and to have an influence on the parents to visit their daughter. He says, what? The Rebbe sent me? I don't know what you're talking about. And a family? Where? What? When? And Rabbi Sverdlov thought that the Bacher, the Shem Tov, didn't want to spill the beans, like, it was some kind of a secret mission. So he kept on applying pressure and saying, come on, this is something that you can already tell. It's already half a year ago. So he says, really, I really don't know what you're talking about. The Rebbe never sent me to go to a family in order to go into influence them to visit their daughter. And then Rabbi Sverdlov started the following to fill in the piece of the puzzle. He says, listen, there's a woman, and she was born to a family that was not observant at the time. And as she grew older, she came close to Yiddishkeit. She became a Baalas Tshuva, and she became a Lubavitcher. She became a Lubavitcher Chassid. When the time came, she got married, and she got married also to someone a Lubavitcher, a Ger Tzedek. But at the time when they get married, so the parents disconnected any contact with the young couple. And this was something very difficult for the daughter to be able to continue in life. It hurt her very much. So the daughter kept on thinking, what can she do? She tried everything, and there's nothing that can mend the tear between her and her parents. So she finally decided that she's going to write a letter to the Rebbe. She wrote a letter to the Rebbe, and she put it into the Rebbe. This is going back into 1991, Tafshin Nun Aleph. And then she kind of forgot about it. After this, she tells me that she never received a direct answer, a direct reply from the Rebbe in the form of a letter or anything else, but she knows as a fact that the Rebbe sent shluchim to her parents in order to speak to them and to penetrate their heart, in order to make the amendments between them and the daughter. And now the parents came to Pittsburgh to visit them, and it's for the first time that the parents saw their grandchildren. They didn't see their grandchildren before. They only had this picture in the home. Now, Levi Shem Tov started to understand, this is the family you're talking about. I was by them. Yes, it's true. And then at the end of the story, he says something very, very touching to the heart. There's a famous Hasidic saying that when the Rebbe wants something to be carried out, so in Yiddish we say, the Rebbe vet gefinen a Weg. The Rebbe will find a way to reply. And this exactly is what these two Bochrim, Levi Shem Tov and Ephraim Mintz, they understood way afterwards how the Rebbe received this letter and how they were the shluchim of the Rebbe to go and to carry out the reply for this young married woman. And the Eibusher should help, as we always know, and as we always mention, that since the Rebbe has already told us the answer and given us the reply, that we are the last generation in Golus and the first generation in Geula, and we're already living in the redemption with Moshiach. And there's only one small stage, which is to go on to have our eyes opened in order to see such and that this is the reality that we're existing in. The Eibusher should help, especially now in the 3 weeks and right before Rosh Chodesh Av, before the 9 days and before Tisha B'Av, the day that we commemorate the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. We should have the building immediately now of the third and the eternal Beis Hamikdash with his golus, with the revelation of the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach on a good and revealed basis, mitoch simcha v'tuv levav, with happiness and joy of the heart, V'id v'hu ikar, it should be teichef u'miyad, mamish, immediately, now in actuality. Yechi Adonenu Morenu V'Rabbeinu HaMelech Ha'Moshiach Le'olam Voed. Amen.